Hey, it's Greg Grunberg, Snap Wexley, and you are listening to 6th Scale Scavengers.
All right, Scavengers, welcome back to another episode of the 6th Scale Scavengers, episode 60. We talk about Hot Toys, Marvel, Star Wars, DC Comics. Got a great show on tap for everybody today. We're going to talk about dioramas in your display. We're going to talk about the Wasp MMS498 review. Got some news to cover, the ever-popular collection update. And we got a special guest with us tonight. So as per the usual, I'm your host, Bryan Fontaine, joined as always with my friends Chris Letty and TC, who happens to be a little under the weather, but he has to keep the Carl Ripken streak going here. So we'll see how long it goes. But also very thrilled to welcome back Scott from Parker Files, part of our admin team with 6th Scale Scavengers. And again, every time you see that video that plays before our episodes now, Scott is the one that we have to thank for that. So welcome back, my friend.
It's good to be here, guys. It's good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're just marveling at your background again, Scott.
I know. Can't stop staring at it.
Speaking of diorama displays, and actually that influenced our topic for tonight. We've been trying to get you back on, Scott. It's been about 3 months since the last time, which when I thought about that, it seems like it was yesterday. So time flies. And you were showing us a sneak preview of some dioramas that you're having built, and they're really, really impressive. And I've also started to embrace back you can see to my left here with my Iron Man diecast on display now. I did embrace the Hot Toy stands again. So maybe you can convert me here a little bit, Scott, but we've got, like I said, we've got a great show. Also happens to fall on Veterans Day today, so we want to thank our veterans in the United States. Also, very fitting that we have our local Canadian on as well, as happens to be Remembrance Day. So just thank you, veterans. Thank you, everybody that has ever served, and just make sure you never forget.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone.
All right, guys, let's get into it. But I think this is the first time we've had an episode since the Mandalorian season 2 is kicked off with chapter 9 and 10. As if you're a new listener, don't worry, we're not going to spoil anything. We're here to talk about collecting, not plot details of stuff. If we're talking about the Mandalorian, just because we're so freaking excited that it's back, so you won't find any spoilers here. So rest assured, you don't have to, put the earmuffs on. We'll protect you. But I do know that there are people out there that are waiting to watch it so they can just binge it all at once in December. Scott, I don't have that kind of willpower. I do not.
Man, I don't either. I am a binge watcher. So like under normal circumstances, that's exactly how I'd operate. And the only reason I'm not is because of you jokers. Because you guys are like having these, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it? I'm like, it's the worst feeling, man. It's the FOMO of everything. So it's like, I'm only watching it because of you guys. So yeah, thanks a lot.
And also
you're wrecking my whole system.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we'll talk about it in the collection update. It sounds like we also enabled you to get a new figure too. So we'll cover that as well. All right, guys, let's get started. Not as much news as I thought we'd end up having, but still some news to talk about nonetheless. unfortunately, some of it's more in the teaser category, but I think we can pontificate a little bit and speculate on what that means and when we can see it. But up first, I see if I can not screw up the photos this time. Up first, we've got Venom from the Venom movie. A lot of us never thought this figure would be made. We thought that there was some licensing issues, and that's why they had to do a Venomized version of everything. Venomized Iron Man, Venomized Groot. So we've got it here. MMS498. We're getting awfully close, TC, to MMS600. I know you made a prediction that could be the Mark 1 diecast.
Well, everybody's made that prediction, but yeah, I'll take credit.
Yeah,
for it.
Why not?
And we'll sidespin the conversation away from Venom right into Iron Man. So.
See how I did that?
Yeah.
So this one's MMS498. The MSRP on this is going to be a very hefty $405 based on Sideshow pricing. And this was announced last week on November 5th. Right now, the estimates of this are Q1 to Q2 2022, so almost a year and a half away at this point. Sideshow's estimating this January to March 2022. That sounds so weird to say at this point, but anyways, so let's talk about this figure here, guys. So TC, I know I just cut you off accidentally there, but this is a different take. I mean, it looks like they're hard rubber parts, hard plastic. Definitely, I mean, it looks great. I just don't know how this is going to fit in for a lot of folks.
Yeah, it looks like it's like a combination of harder rubber, like you said, softer rubber, maybe around the hip joints for articulation. It's just a really tough figure to pull off, like as a figure in this kind of high quality, goal of Hot Toys. It's just, I don't know. I feel Venom always, it looks amazing in statue form. This one, because of you can see some of the joints around the hips and then around the shoulders. It looks good. They did the best they could, but I'm gonna pass on it. But I know a lot of people, finally got their figure, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, when it's that they're fighting the realism versus like action figure look. Like a 12-inch Marvel Legends. I think they have come up with some interesting techniques to try to make the joints a little bit more hidden. I think it looks, really good for what it is. Just a cool looking figure. I mean, good representation from the Venom from the Sony Venom movie. A lot of people kind of bummed out that it doesn't have the classic white spider on his chest, and that's the style it was in the movie, and I don't know if that was a creative decision or what. Probably because it's not based, it didn't come directly from Spider-Man, so it wouldn't really make sense to have a spider on his chest. But I love this figure. Venom was my favorite anti-hero from back in the day. Raul liked to correct me, no villain. But I don't know. I could see myself getting this down the road, but I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those ones that is probably around for a while once it's released because of the price point. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, a lot of the same thoughts. I mean, I think for me, the lack of the white spider on the front, while it's movie accurate, is kind of like I'd wait for a second version for that, just because I'd be looking. I don't want the representation from that movie because I wasn't a huge fan of that movie, but I'm a huge fan of the character. And I think by the time this actually comes out, the second movie will have like the pics of like what he's going to look like in that movie. And my guess is if they do the crossover, then they have Tom Holland or however they incorporate Spider-Man in there, we may get that second look, which would be more iconic for me. But honestly, for me, man, with the collection I have and the reason I have it, like that figure would freak my kid out. So I don't know that, like, as much as I think it looks awesome, I think the body kind of reminds me of the Hulk figure. So I'm assuming it's going to be kind of somewhere in that vein. Looks amazing. Love it. It freaks me out. It's going to freak my kid out. So I'm really torn as to whether or not to get it. I'll probably end up getting it just because I will. But
Yeah.
but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
We'll just wait for the next one because it'll be out in 2 years. They'll announce the next one in another 2 years. So it's 4 years.
Exactly.
You can grow
Exactly.
up.
You're such an enabler. You're such an enabler.
The price tag on this one's, I think it's not high. It's just Hot Toys is producing a lot of figures that are at this price point. I mean, obviously the Iron Man figures, you know, some of the new Mandalorian stuff, quarter scale. You're gonna have potentially the speeder bike, not to bury the lead there or kind of ruin the surprise, but we're gonna talk about that in the future. But there's just a lot of figures that are starting to really creep up, and as they push the limits, they're gonna. I think they run into a little bit of a problem because these price tags beyond just the Iron Man figures are now starting to really get up there. So
yeah. Well, what was the price tag on the Thanos figure? Because it's kind of the same.
430 for the new
right.
battle damage. 428.
Right. So I mean, it's the same size.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, that's the one thing I was going to comment on is a lot of these promo photos, you don't really get to see just how massive this figure is. I think it's easily as big as either of the Thanos figures. So you're paying for a lot of figure there. You know, when we see this at Secret Base, you see how big it is, and especially with the symbiote, coming off the back, that's where it's going to be part of a massive display. Scott, I thought you put it about as politically correct as you could. I thought this movie was awful. Like, it was so bad. I could barely get through it. And I wasn't a huge Venom fan, in the 90s, but I was obviously very aware of it, part of the Spider-Man cartoon and stuff. Like you guys, if I was going to have a Venom, I would want the white spider on the chest. I mean, that's the iconic look. So we'll wait and see. But I think I took this as Hot Toys is finally listening, because every time they posted a picture of one of those Venomized figures that wasn't actually Venom, I think people were just finally, fed up. And I mean, you're talking about a movie that's 2 years old at this point. So,
Yeah.
you saw it, as Hot Toys is going back. Obviously, this is a Sony film, that it looks like Hot Toys is going to start to go back and do, we have Cable coming from Deadpool 2. There's rumors that we might get more figures from Deadpool 2 out there. So, I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think that just because something is not the latest and greatest, we could still get, some figures from there.
I mean, I'll just, piggyback that. It's like, it's good that Hot Toys is willing to go back and do some of these figures that people, really like, or characters they really like from some of these older movies. And I'm wondering if, the new agreements with Marvel and Sony, and then also Disney acquiring Fox, I think it might open up the possibilities for some of those other properties to actually get made, just because it's easier for Disney with the licensing and that sort of thing. But I mean, just love hearing about potential figures down the line, especially from Deadpool 2. So yeah.
All right, guys, I got to give Mike a shout out. Our moderator out there is already doing great work. We are a 6 scale show, as you can tell from the name, covering Marvel, Star Wars, DC Comics. I wasn't going to cover this, but as we talked about, I've personally got Mando fever at this point. And Roy has the screenshot and you guys, and the three of you can attest to this. I explicitly said, guys, I don't think I'm going to get this. I'm a 6 scale collector. Roy's got the screenshot, and spoiler for the collection update, I did pre-order the standard version of this figure. I know we're just looking here at
2 hours later.
2 hours later, basically, because I have no willpower. But anyways, I figured we can cover all 3 releases here kind of in one swoop. TC, you kind of mentioned it already. We got the tease basically right before the last episode, from Hot Toys. And then, obviously we're dealing now with Mando Mondays, where every Monday we're going to start to see some new products. I don't think you're going to see a Hot Toy release every Monday coinciding with this. This past one, they did not. We'll talk about some of the sneak previews they did show us the other night. But we've got quarter scale 16, 17, and 18, or QS 16, 17, 18, we've got a Mandalorian standard figure, a deluxe figure, which has this base that we have here with the E-Web cannon. And then they are actually doing the quarter scale child figure separately. Price tag on these TC are up there. The standard quarter scale figure is $545, which is high for a quarter scale figure. But then when you realize that the quarter scale child alone, which is a 3.5-inch figure, basically the size of a normal credit card, $175 for that and the pram. And then if you want the figure, the child, and the pram, and then this insane base that has IG-11 and the E-Web cannon, you're looking at $655 for a quarter scale figure. Like, again, we don't talk quarter scale that much, but we almost had to talk about this TC.
Yeah. So yeah, which one did you end up pre-ordering?
So I went for the standard. I just
Okay.
the base to me just was way too over the top, and you basically only have a few poses that you can do. So if you're not going to use the E-Web cannon, then to me the base is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah. I mean, except for the Boba Fett Return of the Jedi version, one of the earliest quarter scale figures, most of the quarter scale bases all the parts are plastic. So like for the Iron Man Mark III, I've got the deluxe version, but it has the Ironmonger's hand. So to me, I thought it was worth the extra price for it because it's such a key part of the movie. I don't know what all this is. So I mean, I don't, the IG-11 dead, on the ground to me doesn't make, tons of sense combined with the random Mandalorian helmets. I guess we'll see, but that's a lot of money that you can save. And $545, if you can get it at $545, maybe save on shipping somewhere in taxes. It's not that bad when you consider the price of a regular Mandalorian figure is close to $300. So I don't think it's a bad value for the normal. This is one of the instances where I would get the normal version because you get everything except for the base. You get the pram and the child. And I think that value there, if it's $175 on its own, $545 minus $175, $300 and something for the Mando figure himself, it's pretty good value.
Scott, I'll kick it over to you next on this one. I know that obviously you're primarily a Marvel focus collector. Obviously, you're a fan of Star Wars still. I don't want to take that away from you, but I mean, quarter scale is a whole different beast. Like I have a couple quarter scale, X-Men statues to my left, and they're big. Don't get me wrong. It's you really have to commit to this because of the space that these take up.
Yeah, for sure. But man, that thing looks awesome. Like, I don't know what it is about the Mandalorian. Like, it's really tempting. Every one of these figures tempts me with the Star Wars, path. It's tough. I'm with TC though. They should get him to do a commercial for this figure because what he just said, like, great sales pitch to pull that trigger. I'm with everybody. I think Randall said there in the chat, like the base is kind of what throws it off, and I agree. Like, I don't know why they didn't do something more simple, like a desert scene. That iconic where they're walking in at the first, actually no spoilers, but when they walk in first episode kind of deal, but it just looks awesome. The detail, that baby is creepy though. But it's the detail. Like, I'm shocked that even on the top of that, like, you don't see the little hair and stuff. That's one little detail I thought was missing on a quarter scale, like that you just showed that picture there. But that outfit is just totally, it's just killer, man. It looks incredible. But yeah, quarter scale is just a path that I can't go down. Because I love the Spider-Man one that they're showing, but even there, the base on that is just ridiculous, right? So it's these incredible figures, but the bases just make them, I don't know, like too much. So looks great, but not for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Quarter scale is just not something that really appeals to me size-wise. Again, I've seen them in person and they look great, but it's just it's a slippery slope. And thankfully, if you're going to stick to just Hot Toys quarter scale, there's not a ton of them out there, but they're all pretty pricey. And that's the thing with this is the price tag. A lot of people talking about they could get to 6 scale figures in the line, and that's a good representation. But I mean, if you say you don't want to collect the whole line, you just want a really good representation for the show, or your love of the the child and Mandalorian. I mean, this is a great centerpiece, singular piece for a collection. I think the detail is just obviously top notch. The prototype looks amazing. And yeah, you're right. The child, looks cute and weird at the same time, but also having no fuzz on its head. I mean, Yoda's got fuzz on his head. Just add a little bit, something else there. But yeah, it's another great release for Hot Toys, and we'll see if there's any other figures from Mandalorian that get the quarter scale treatment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys have already said all the good stuff. Although it's funny, Scott, you mentioned it first with not having the fuzz on top of the child's head. You have to think that they might fix that before this hits the final production here. And
I hope so. He kind of looks like Mr. Bigglesworth. So, like, because he's got that little fuzz on the other one, right? Like on the 6 scale one, he's got just a little bit of tuft, I think, right? Like, it just looks funny.
Yeah. So, and actually, before I get going here too, it looks like just looking at the chat, and Mike's doing the best to take the fire extinguisher out and calm the people down. It looks like YouTube might be down in some areas and stuff, but we're still streaming here, so that's one benefit of going through StreamYard is we'll still have the video here regardless. But yeah, I mean, and Randall made a good point too. The quarter scale, you cannot really display quarter scale and 6 scale together. You kind of have to have it separate. And that's ultimately what I decided to do is I'm going to have a separate display. And actually, I also have something else coming along the way too. So my display may not be that different from what they displayed at the new Secret Base store that opened up. So, but I just love the Mandalorian. Like you said, Scott, this is just jaw-droppingly great. The level of detail. And I guess the one benefit to quarter scale versus 6 scale is you've got more area for detail and that fine detail work can go in. And Hot Toys is good at what they do. I mean, there's a reason why we devote a whole podcast or show on YouTube to this every 2 weeks. So we'll see. I mean, it's really exciting though that we got a release. And if you're curious, so I don't maintain the quarter scale figures in our 6 scale database, but at this point you've got the Boba Fett TC. Was there a deluxe and a standard version of that?
There was an exclusive from Sideshow. It had his pistol blaster.
Gotcha. So basically, you've got Boba Fett. You've got the Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett, Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader. Now, the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, and the child here separately. So just crazy stuff. I mean, it's really a good time to be a collector here. So let's, while I try to shift gears as quickly as possible here, and I want to talk about these teases here, Chris, because this was crazy. So long rumored, very much speculated. If we follow the trend of the recent teases they've given us, but let's not go all the way back to when they showed Shazam and they didn't give us a Shazam figure. I mean, all the people on the Hot Toys Facebook page are still clamoring for that. Poor Why is Cyborg, some of those things that they've shown.
Poe Dameron.
Yeah, Poe Dameron got this treatment. So I'm not sure I want to get super my high hopes up for this, but they did this for the quarter scale Mandalorian. We did get that figure. They've showed this similar type of image that we're showing here. Obviously, this is Moff Gideon and the Darksaber with a new 6 scale version of the Mandalorian for season 2 on his speeder bike. We've seen that a prototype of that on display at Secret Base. So they're very likely that we're going to get that on one of these Mondays coming up here very soon. But so Chris, people, if you think about the most wanted characters from the Mandalorian, I think the biggest gripe a lot of people have is they want head sculpts. Well, I'm seeing half of Moff Gideon's face here, but I mean, Cara Dune, Grief Karga. There's a lot. The armor, I want the armor. That's probably my most wanted figure.
Yeah, this is definitely this has been at the top of a lot of people's lists since the end of the season 1 anyway. And I mean, who doesn't want a 1/6 scale figure of Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon? I mean, it's a great looking figure. It's a very different Imperial design with the black suit uh, and the cape and that sort of thing. I think just this teaser alone, you can see the detail in the prototype, and it looks awesome. And it would probably be one that's high at my want list for a Mandalorian figure for the line. And he's the big bad guy as of now, overarching bad guy. So a key character, and I mean, getting that dark saber, and that's just an awesome accessory to add with a a figure.
I mean, personally, maybe he is the big bad guy, but spoiler alert, he's only been in 20% of the episodes.
I know.
And for me to commit to getting a hot toy, I gotta know a little bit more about this character. But I mean, for certain, I think people that are collecting this whole line, you got to be excited that we're going to get a, like I said, a face sculpt figure here instead of a trooper helmet.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people have been calling for this figure since the end of last season, and yeah, I mean, it looks like it's on the way. I don't see any reason why Hot Toys wouldn't deliver on this at this point with this kind of half tease, but yeah, it looks like it has great potential, and definitely one I'll consider. I don't know my plans for the Mandalorian line yet, but if I get more than just Mandalorians, and this is definitely one at the top of my list at that point.
And Scott, this one's screaming to you to just start collecting. You could have a whole Maja case of Mandalorian.
Right. Yeah. Listen, man, leave me. No, it's funny. You say he's only been in 20% of the episodes. So like the Emperor was only in how many percent of the episodes in the first, like my guess is this guy's Mando's father is probably where this is going, right? Like they're gonna have this big battle and he's his dad and we're gonna keep repeating the cycle, but
he's gonna cut off his hand.
Yeah, it's just totally, it's just gonna happen, man. No, it looks awesome. Yeah, please no. It looks awesome. Like it's unique, right? It's kind of like the same as Windu or who am I thinking of? Dude with the beard in the prequels. Dooku, like, they have a unique lightsaber. They have a unique look for baddies and stuff. Sure. So I think that's kind of cool and it sets it apart, but sleek looking outfit and the cape looks pretty big. And yeah, I hope they come through with it just because for, Star Wars collectors, right? It's the more well-rounded those figures and collections can be. I think it's better for everybody. And I think it seems like Star Wars is getting some traction. So your website shows that too. So yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So Chris, you're the vintage guy here. So this obviously is a vintage figure. Obviously, a Tusken Raider has been around since 1977 with a New Hope, and the Mandalorian TV show. I guess mild spoiler here. Have breathed a little bit more new life into this, character tribe, whatever you want to call them on Tatooine. A few of our collecting friends like Mark have said he's actually potentially a little bit more excited about this than Moff Gideon, which is blasphemous. But I'm having a tough time getting excited about something that's kind of like a background character. Like it looked good in a huge display, but as a solo, as a figure here, I'm having a hard time getting excited for this one in particular.
Yeah, it's not going to be your one representative for your Star Wars collection. It's going to be one to accent a display or, fill out a scene. And it's a troop builder, essentially, figure. You can get multiples of these. I'm sure, it's going to come with some different, cloaks or different, display options and that sort of thing. I mean, Sand People, Tusken Raider. I mean, that is just OG, OT Star Wars to the core. It's, original 12 Kenner figure back in the day. So, I mean, you can't get much more Star Wars than a Tusken Raider. And I think that's great that Hot Toys is giving us a figure like that. It's always good to get figures that can be bought in multiples. I mean, my kind of wish would be that they would have a regular and a deluxe, and the deluxe would come with the massive kind of creature that we saw like in Attack of the Clones and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think it's just a cool looking figure, and it's gonna again add something different to that display.
TC Scott, I mean, this isn't one that we have to break down in depth. We just got a teaser here, but
yeah, I mean, I think this is phenomenal. Because it's just you can obviously you can use it. I guess if you have a New Hope display, it could fill in there. But it's just like you said, Chris. It's classic Star Wars, and I know they're just background characters, but I don't know. I think it's just cool to, it's like you said, it's Star Wars at its finest, and it's a great looking background character. And so if they do a deluxe version with what is it called, Chris?
I'm pretty sure it's a massive.
With the massive, that would be something really cool.
Yeah. Sand people come in pairs though to hide their numbers, so I don't know why we're only getting one when we got the 2-pack of the other guys. Like it's like I don't know, but it looks amazing. Like you look at the fine detail there, you don't even really notice that on screen sometimes how like the details in that outfit and what they're wearing. Like that's what I love about this stuff. It's just awesome.
Speaking of watching the screen here, I'm going to make sure that any of our audio listeners go check out what Sean just said here in the stream. But a very, very cool development for speaking of those Star Wars fans. So enough Star Wars, guys. This image that we got teased today, a day after Spider-Man Miles Morales dropped on PS4 and PS5 with... Guys, I'm not much of a gamer nowadays. If I get a PS5 and an Xbox Series X or whatever the heck they're calling that thing now, I loved the original, the Spider-Man game they had on PS4. And obviously we've gotten so many Hot Toys figures from this, Scott. They're going to keep going. And the fact that this is this will be... It appears to be a VG series, the video game series of Miles Morales. It would not be the Miles that we're going to get from Into the Spider-Verse, and that, I hate to say, like cartoon look, but this could potentially fill into an MCU display until we actually get Miles in the MCU, which really has to only be a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly laid the groundwork for that in the Spider-Man Homecoming, right? Like they've set the table for that. This thing, I'm really excited about this. Like just to look at it, I have some questions just looking at the picture, trying to figure out what it's made out of, the material there, the choices. Like it looks very similar to the probably the first video game version they did, the classic one with the big white spider on it. Like it looks similar in that respect. But yeah, this is just awesome. Like this would probably be the only video game Spider-Man I'd get. Probably, I should say, one of two. I'll probably get the classic look and this one, but those are the only two I'd get out of that whole line. But I saw this and I was just like drooling. I was like, I can't wait for this thing, man. Got to have this. Got to have it.
Chris?
Yeah, Miles. It's just such an awesome look to his suit, and yeah, I'll be interested to see how many trees and all the fun stuff that might come with them. I just think, Miles Morales is such a great character. Obviously, people love the character, and I mean it's a no-brainer for Hot Toys to have the VGM Miles Morales, and yeah, just fill out that Spider-Man collection. It just keeps growing and growing. So this is one that, even though I'm not a gamer or anything, I do love the character, and I'd have to weigh my options. Am I going to go with the Into the Spider-Verse line and have my Miles represented there, or would I have this one as a representative? So, got some things to think about if and when they release this one, and not a bad problem to have.
Why not both?
Mm-hmm.
Right, TC?
Oh yeah. No, I don't know anything about Miles Morales. My Marvel calling card. You can call my what is the saying? Yeah,
Your fan card.
Yeah, you can take my fan card away. I need to.
You can keep
I
it.
need
You
to.
can keep it.
I need to do some research and watch his movie. But looks great.
Yeah, I really hope that. Well, who knows? So I haven't had the opportunity to even see the game. I probably will play it at some point. The first game was just so massive, and I've heard that it's within the same map of New York, just a smaller game. The first one was just so massive. It's one of the first games. I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast here before. Like, it was one of the first games that I completed 100% of everything, like all the side missions of everything. It was just that good. And, I hope that it's just as good. So I don't know. I'll probably try to find a way to get this on my PS4, because there's no way in heck that I'm going to get one of these next gen systems. Like, I haven't even bothered to look at the secondary market, guys. They got to be already 2 and 3 times that for these people that slept in their cars overnight to be first in line.
Yeah, I went to Walmart today to pick up some items, and I went through the electronics section. Everything's gone. Surprisingly, the Switches are still available. Usually they're the ones that are gone. But Xbox and PS5 gone.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we don't have to sit on this one, too long, guys, that we get, some tangible prototypes and announcements and stuff so they can start to plan on it. But, as I told you guys earlier in our admin chat, like, this is one of those things that they've known that this game was going to be releasing for a while. I wonder if they've been working on this behind the scenes and, didn't want to announce a figure prior to a game dropping. But, this is a perfect time when people are super excited about a new system launch, next gen, a new game, a new character, where people love this stuff. It's, they would be really smart to capitalize on it right now at this point. All right, Chris, just a couple other things. Actually, speaking of Mando, guys, it looks like the release date for the deluxe figure, the deluxe and then the standard version, we've aptly named as Beskar Mando. Looks like Sideshow's moved up their date to January to March 2021. Initially on our website, guys, we had that as April to July 2021. So we're talking about 3 or 4 months moving up. Obviously, we do not have the drop in Hong Kong yet at this point, Chris, but to me, that means it's imminent now, I guess.
Yeah, I would think that that's going to happen pretty soon, with those dates changing like they did. It's usually about 3 months out from when Hong Kong drops with Sideshow's estimates. So I would say, we can guess within the next 2 to 3 weeks potentially. We might see a drop. And I think that's whether it's Hot Toys amped up their production, they wanted to get those out sooner than later, before they potentially announce the next Mandalorian figure. Who knows? I would think along those lines. But hey, the sooner we get that deluxe Mando with that that child, I'm all for it.
IG-11, that would be pretty cool. That's one they've owed us the longest. Yeah, heavy entry Mando, Paz Vizsla. At some point, we got to get Gamora, guys. Like, why is Gamora taking so long? They have to have
getting leapfrogged again.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's now the longest. It's the most overdue figure by a landslide that's out there. I think at this point, I wish I tracked the release dates in my Excel database rather than just on the website, because it'd make it a lot easier to just quickly scan through and find out what the longest one is. But it's got to be by far. I mean, Chris, that was like one of the first figures you pre-ordered, even well before we started the podcast here.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, because I mean, if we go at this point, we wouldn't even get her in the States if we ordered through Sideshow until after the new year. So, I mean, we're talking into 2021. The figure was put up for pre-order, I think, May of 2018. So, right? Is that right?
I think so.
I thought it was February 2018.
It was early to mid 2018.
Yeah.
I could easily check our nifty own database here, but we'll guess. It's sometime in that time frame. So when it finally does drop, and it will have to, I'm gonna have to get out the date calculator to find out exactly, because our feature figure review took a heck of a long time to come out too. And
May 2nd, 2018 announced.
All right. So I was wrong. You're right. That happens all the time, especially behind the scenes where none of our listeners and viewers ever see it. All right, guys, let's shift gears and let's talk about collection update. So we've all, got some updates here. So let's see here. Well, let's give honors to our friend Scott joining us as a guest. It looks like you've got some neat little updates. And like I said at the opening, I'm sorry in advance that the enablers came through for you.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. No, so yeah, I mean, like everybody else, you have some decisions you make as you kind of look at your displays and your collections and how you're going to go and the decisions you're going to make. And so the Mark 47 for me was one I kind of was going to admire from a distance. And then you guys were all talking about how awesome it was and this and that. And I was like, oh man, it really looks good. It really looks good. And then I was trying to figure out, it doesn't really fit in my display. And you guys assured me that it did. So went ahead and ordered that from Sideshow. And so that I was supposed to arrive tomorrow, but actually he showed up early. And so I ran home and got him and brought him in. And yeah, he's as advertised. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's going to go in my new Spider-Man display. I'm assuming we'll be talking about those things a little bit later, displays and dioramas and stuff. But to get that, because it wasn't really in my plans, I sold my Enter Bay Jordan, Ultimate Jordan, or the last version of it, which was kind of sad for me. TC knows, like, I'm a huge Jordan fan and always have been. And I collect Jordan sneakers too. So I was like, well, I'll just stick to the shoes and get rid of the figure. So let that go. And then with that, so I got the 47 and paid off the 85 and Gamora if she ever shows up from Guardians 3. So anyway, so that's all taken care of. And then Stan Lee arrived, and you guys talked in great length in the last episode how much you all love that figure and desperately want it. So I have it. So review will be coming down the pike for that one. And I also got the Toys Era Iron Spider display, like the diorama for that. So the revolving door, and that's pretty sick, actually. I'm pretty impressed with that. So reviews coming down the pike for that as well. And then last, I got just today got an email that the Doc Ock is coming in. So in Toys Wonderland. So I think they said it's going to ship first week of December. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So those are the ones that I've kind of ordered and paid off, and they're all just kind of waiting. So other than that, paid off the last of a couple of custom dioramas that I haven't made that you mentioned earlier. And so got some final pictures of those today. And so hopefully they're shipping next week, and yeah, get to it.
Oh, you missed one too. Nebula. Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah.
So your Nebula review on your channel, Parker Files. Make sure everybody go check that out.
Yes, do that. She came in, phenomenal figure. Couple little issues, but man, she just looks awesome. Yeah, I hope if Gamora looks like in par with that, I don't want to say she'll be worth the wait, but she'll be worth the wait. So hopefully she does.
All right, thanks, Scott. So TC, what do you got?
All right. Nothing much. I know this isn't 6 scale, but I was talking to Chris about this, and I ended up almost ordering. I guess this kind of counts as something. Almost ordering the Razor Crest from HasLab. It looks great, but I think at the end of the day, I just decided I'd probably buying it for the wrong reasons, more of not wanting to miss out rather than me really wanting to add it to the collection just to have in the collection. So because of that, I decided not to. And then I canceled my Iron Scavenger from Jazz Inc. And tough decision, but I woke up one morning and said I don't need it anymore. And I think just the way my office is going, it just doesn't have a place right now. So I can't put it in my main display case, and it wasn't gonna look good. I thought on my wall, it was just too big, and so yeah, I canceled it. Yost was cool about it and gave me my refund. minus initial deposit, and moved on. That's it.
Man.
I know.
Sorry, Yost.
That's some willpower there, man. Well done.
Actually, he improved on the figure, so the jacket looks better than what it did before.
It really does, yeah.
I don't know. I just don't feel it would look good on a wall, and that's where I put my stuff. My figures, a lot of it they'll go on the wall. It just it took up too much real estate, depth wise and width wise. So yeah, it just wasn't fit anymore. As sad as it is.
Tough decisions we have to make.
So speaking of tough decisions, Chris.
Yeah. So let's see. I did back the Razor Crest. that was one of those things that I waited to the last minute. I mean, for me, I struggled with it the whole time because, you know, I do mostly 6 scale and like, you know, vintage Star Wars stuff, 3 3/4 inch. But again, 3 3/4 inch collecting is at the root of my collecting. I mean, that's G.I. Joe, you know, Star Wars, like all that stuff. And I mean, Hasbro just put out this amazing representation of, you know, the Mandalorian ship, and it's now becoming, you know, pretty iconic and popular and that sort of thing. So I just had to do it. You know, if I have to put a shelf in the master bedroom, then I'll do it. But you know, I'm just looking forward to that next year. The only crappy part is you got to pay the full amount up front, and that's the part that I was struggling with was paying for the full amount up, you know, up front. But anyway, happy I did it. I succumbed to all the pressure that everybody in our other collector chat was giving me. So anyway, yeah, you were the opposite, and I appreciate getting, you know, points from different views and that sort of thing. So my Wasp arrived. We'll be talking about that shortly. And I ended up, I know I was kind of shifting my pre-order strategy, but I did want to make sure I locked in a pre-order for the Death Watch Mandalorian from Ray at Underground Figures. That's just, you know, he just provides such great service and can't go wrong with his pricing differences and shipping and all that. And then finally, I know I mentioned it last time, I had my Age of Ultron Hulk for sale, and it finally sold. So that was able to help me fund some of those other things. But yeah, I'm pretty sure my 6 scale purge has come to a conclusion. I don't think there's too much else that I'm going to really cut, you know, as of now. But yeah, that's kind of all I got.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
No, good stuff, Chris. I do wanted to mention too. So the Death Watch Mando finally was able to be listed last week, I believe. I noticed it first on Big Bad Toy Store, and then I reached out to Ray myself and said, "Hey, are you going to be able to get this?" And he said he did. So I don't have any departures, probably for the first time in a long time. I did add some pre-orders, and then I want to kind of go through and tell a brief little story, but it's, you know, collection update wise. So I mentioned the quarter scale Mando, the standard version. I succumbed to whatever rules, or Roy's just cackling probably at himself right now because he still has that screenshot he can hold over my head forever now. I did also actually add back the full scale child from Hot Toys, Baby Yoda. The sideshow version, as well as it turned out, that is back on the radar too, but that just maybe happens to be a holiday Christmas gift. It will be my only gift this year. So my wife is awesome, and my son. So looking forward to that. And then for 6 scale stuff, as Chris mentioned, the Death Watch Mando. I love Mandalorians in general. I want to make sure I didn't miss that with Ray at Underground Figures. Also added Lando. I know I'd hummed and hawed over that one for the longest time, but you have to have Mr. Colt 45 in your collection if you're a Star Wars collector. So I held off long enough on that one. I finally decided that he absolutely did need to be there. And I had let my pre-order go for the Heavy Mando Paz Vizsla a while ago on Big Bad Toy Store, but decided to add it back. And unfortunately, by waiting, I had to go with Sideshow, but I had a coupon and some rewards to knock that price down. But again, we talk about it often, and sometimes you either, it's okay to change your mind, and it's certainly okay, as I've proven to my left here with all my diecast Iron Man figures. You can always buy things back, even if you do decide to let it go. But the more you wait, or the more that you kind of wait to find out if you want to proceed with something, you miss out the chance to get it with the people like Underground Figures or Stevens Collectibles, where you can save on, shipping and taxes and all that other stuff. So it sometimes, if you know what you want to do early on, it can benefit you in the long run, as long as you don't cancel pre-orders and have to eat NRDs at whatever point. So Scott, this is fitting that you're on, because speaking of Magic Cases, I finally got my emails from Bryan and Ashley at Magic Case. The vessel has docked in California. It actually did. It wasn't just hearsay. So I'm just waiting for it to make it to my boxes, to make it to the warehouse in California, and then from there ship it across the country to New Hampshire. And I'm already looking forward to taking a couple of days off from work to set those up, because I've got a nice display to my right, to your left on the screen here, ready to go. I've got all my figures boxed up in my basement, ready to unbox them one by one. And to do that, so speaking of unboxing figures, I have this open display, and you can kind of see it again to my left, your right on the screen. I decided to finally break out the Hulkbuster, and then decided that I was going to be okay with having my die-cast Iron Man figures open display, not behind acrylic or glass or whatever. And I'm so glad I did it. I hummed and hawed over it a long time, but I've got these, 4 different shelves. I've got 3 Iron Man figures on each. My son helped me. It was, and I've mentioned it before too. My son is going to be 9 on Friday, and Iron Man is his favorite superhero at the moment. So he was so excited that Sunday morning we got the Hulkbuster out, and I could not believe, like, when you stand it on a table, guys, and Scott, you've got it in your display behind you, and TC, you've got it as well. Until you have it in person and see it and just marvel at the engineering and everything about it, it's one of Hot Toys' masterpieces. You just, to see it is to believe it. So you can kind of see it in my display there. And, I'll keep them dusted. That's one downfall to having it not behind like glass or acrylic there. But, I was talking to Red Wolf in our group, and, there's just something about being able to kind of maneuver around when you're looking at a figure, get really up close to it, see it from different angles. You almost have that, if you want to move it around and shift it, you can. You don't feel like it's like a museum type, situation. And it definitely has just increased my love for a lot of these figures. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, by using some of I have them all on the Hot Toys bases, just because I don't want them to tip over, because there's nothing there to prevent them from having a long tumble. And some of them I had to, this will dovetail into the conversation we're going to have with, using some of the Hot Toys displays as diorama bases. I had them all in numeric order, 2 all the way to Mark L, Mark 50, but the Mark 6 base was too tall, and I had to switch spots with the Mark L and the Mark 6. So I've got Mark 6 on the top with my 46 and 47, and Mark L's chilling with my Mark 5 and my Mark 7. It's just so cool to have them out there. I was joking with you guys. I kind of ranked them all, one against each other. And I'm glad, Scott, you did get the 47, because that's my top figure, overall. I think it was 47, 46, and then 7, 5 and 4 were really high up there. 6 is high up there. But it's really cool. So I'm super happy to have that. And now they're right here. So anyways, more of a different kind of collection update, more of kind of the display, but it was so fun. And again, Scott, you've mentioned it the last time you were on, being able to kind of share the collecting journey with your son, was the reason why your YouTube channel is called what it is. And it just adds another layer to the collecting that we don't really talk about all that much on the podcast here. All right, let's shift gears, guys, and let's talk about our topic of the episode here. And like I said, it was inspired from Scott joining us again, and he was sharing these pictures of this custom diorama display that he's got coming very soon. And Scott, I don't want to steal any of your thunder when you describe about it, but I thought it was a really cool topic that we don't really cover a lot because, for the most part, I think most hot toy collectors either have their figures on a not necessarily a shelf like I do, but maybe a lot of people use IKEA products, so like a Billy bookcase, or you've got IKEA Detolf. Moji cases are becoming a little bit more popular. I'm kind of surprised their name isn't necessarily completely mud at this point because of all the delays and stuff they have. But your first YouTube video that you did, Scott, on Parker Files was your Moji case setup. And you've said it multiple different times. Once you have it in hand and once you set it up, you completely forget about all the delays and how long it took. So it's really cool to be able to use some of these things to really amp up your display, where it's not just you've got just figures lined up all in like museum poses. You can make different action displays. I know our friend Robert has a whole huge MCU setup in his closet that he took the door off, and it's got this whole building, and there's like a 6 Scale Scavengers sign in there, and there's all this other stuff. It's just so cool. So I'm not an expert on this. I don't have a whole lot. I mean, there's people out there like Yost with Jazz Inc. who's making vehicles and dioramas and stuff. So I'm going to stop rambling here, Scott. I'm going to kick it off to you first and just kind of maybe explain what maybe first got you to say, like, okay, when I'm going to do my display, but I also want to kind of kick it up a notch.
Well, for me, I think again, I think it's everybody teach their own, right? So like I was kind of looking when I first started collecting, I only had, the Spider-Man figure. And then it was like, once I went down the rabbit hole, then it was like, I started looking to all the different people and what they were doing and how they were posing their figures, how they were displaying them. And then as I started buying more figures before I even pose them, like I was like you, Bryan, I had them all in boxes before I made the decision because I was in the process of moving into my current office. And so I was like, my wife was like, you're not displaying those in the house. So it's like they were going to my office. And so until I got into that office, I wasn't really, so I had a lot of time to figure out what I was going to get and how I was going to display them. And then, but I was still buying figures. And so as I was buying the figures, I was seeing like the difference in the bases that were coming with them. And so like, they're random, right? Like, the Mark 46 has got this awesome rubble one. And then there's another figure like, Nick Fury, who comes just with that typical black base. And so they were so different. And that doesn't work for me. Like my personality, like I like uniformity. And so it was either I want them all like just straight black stands, or I want all diorama style. And then as I got kind of looking at the way I was going to, go down the Marvel road, and I just kind of was, how am I going to lump all these figures together? And I didn't like, for me, the Detolfs didn't work just because, not because of the look of them or anything. It was just more, I didn't want to be limited to like, I've got 3 figures here from a group, but then I've got can only like, I can't put all the Guardians in one cube. Right. And so like, for me, I was like, I don't like that. So that wasn't for me. And then I went to IKEA. Like, I think my wife and I went for breakfast, like every day off I had like, ooh, what about that? And what about that? And she was just like, pick, and then finally I saw an ad for the Moji case thing, and it was like, oh, because the one, I almost went with a IKEA style, but I really wanted to do the Hall of Armor, and there was no option that the entire Hall of Armor fit. Like it was just, every dimension was just too small. And so that was like, oh, what am I going to do? And then I didn't want to have, I wanted uniformity in my cases just as much as I did my displays. And so I came across the Moji case, and then that was it, because you could do custom sizes, you could do, all these different things. So I just was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And so then it came, and then, and then the dioramas for me are another part of that for me, where it's just like, I like, just having them all together and not using all the stands, like, cause the difference in the stands bothers me. Like maybe a little bit OCD, I don't know, but I just like when it all looks uniformed. Right. So that's kind of where I went down with that. And then I was buying like, on eBay, I think, Bryan, I bought your Mark 46 base on eBay when you were parting out figures, and that's how I got connected to you. And yeah, so just that's kind of how it went, and then I started going down the rabbit hole of all these, custom pieces that can be made, and that just opened up a whole can of worms because you know, at some point you don't have figures to chase after anymore as much, and so it's like, well, what else can I do to, feed the addiction? And so then it was dioramas for me, and so I've come across some pretty awesome guys who have incredible talent and are just really good at this stuff. So that's where I am with it.
Awesome. So, I mean, Chris, it's funny when we think about Yoast and Jazz Inc. that, a lot of people are thinking like, okay, well, like the Falcon cockpit. I know a lot of people are super excited about, the Batmobile. That's not really the Batmobile. I don't want to get into that whole thing. Yeah. But anyways, I mean, that is a diorama. I mean, to have the Falcon cockpit or something like that, it just adds a whole nother layer to, to kind of a display.
Yeah. Yeah. And Yoast, like, I mean, he started out doing, simpler stuff, just things that he could add into a DTOF, and just to add that little extra touch to make it, just stand out and feel more like a scene, not just figures on display. And I think a lot of, people get inspired by other artists, making different displays, and people see, like Scott set up behind him. I mean, you've got everything from the backdrop, you've got, on the ground, and just to add everything, and like between Yoast and some of these other custom guys, I mean, possibilities are endless. Like I think it really depends on if, what people are willing to make custom, if it's custom, or, small batches of things, and that sort of thing. But it's just, I love the look of a display that's set up like a full battle scene or whatever it might be. The Death Star, from the viewport room or whatever, it's just, that just puts a display to another level. And I think stuff like that, that's kind of what I, the direction I would want to go is to do the scenes and that sort of thing. I got to get displays and everything first, but
get rid of Letty Warehouse.
I know I got to do a conversion here, but yeah, I think it's just another way to express the way you collect and that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's
so TC. Yeah. I know both you and I are more. I hate to call us like boring or basic or vanilla or whatever, but for the most part, like. Very boring. I mean, I love the look of the figures. That to me is why I collect this stuff. But I have to say, like, I could be persuaded. I mean, I've got some Moji cases on the way. I don't know, like maybe do something to kind of kick it up a notch a little bit here.
I mean, if I had Scott's display set up, I would love to do what he did. I mean, that looks amazing. He's got all the Moji cases set up. He's got the Hall of Armors at the bottom. The scenes on the next two levels. Thanos is like looking down on everybody. And is that what's the backdrop on that? Is that Titan?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's Titan. And then you got the Guardians up there. Yeah.
Sick. I mean, I just don't have that ability in my my little office to do that. And nor do I have the Moji cases on order. And so I can't do it. But so if you can, I mean, it looks like Chris said, it really changes the way that the figures look. They look more life, they look more alive. That's the right word. Yeah, more alive. So
they do and they don't in the sense. Sorry, Brian, I was just going to say, like, again, I think it is to each their own, right? Like you look at Roy's setup last week, and that's the complete opposite direction. But every one of those figures stands out and looks incredible, right? So I think it really. I think there's so many various options. It's just, it comes down to space. It comes down to all kinds of things, right? So rather than me putting pictures up of my family in my office, I kind of went this route, which doesn't earn me a lot of points at home. But I don't have them at home either. So I guess that's the other side of it. But yeah, I think there's lots of different ways. It's just being as creative and expressing yourself with your collection, right? And teach their own. And, you know, like Bryan's, yours look awesome with those LED lights, and the Letty warehouse always looks nice. And, you know, it's just how you choose to do it. Yeah, I think it's fun.
So, Scott, a couple of questions. I do want to kind of end with, you know, talking about some of the dioramas you had custom made. So obviously we're talking about some of the backgrounds there. How does somebody go about getting something like that, for whether they've got a Moducase, case, whether they've got a DTOF?
Sure. Yeah. Which part? The dioramas, or like the
background, like the background?
Yeah. So the backgrounds on the, I came across a guy named, his name's Dean, and his company's Backdrops and Bases, and you can find him on Facebook. If you go to the Moducase video, there's a link in the description there for him and how to get a hold of him on Facebook. But I just wrote him. He's overseas, and just messaged him on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm looking at doing this." I think the majority of his work was for DTOFs. Like he has a lot of already done ones that you can just buy. So if you're a DC collector, Star Wars, Marvel, like he has like a whole bunch of those already done, and you can just order them. But I said, "Hey, look, like I've got these displays, and I'm looking to get some large, you know, things done." And he's like, "Oh yeah, totally. I can do that. Like I can help you source the artwork, or if you have artwork." And so we kind of work together. He's a really great guy. He's awesome to talk to, incredible customer service, went the extra mile. Really like him. Kind of one of those guys I wish I could actually get to meet him in person. But yeah, he's great. The artwork is phenomenal. It's just like this high density foam. So it's really sturdy. It's not cheap, but it's again, like everything, you get what you pay for. Like it's not some flimsy piece of paper. Like this is a legit, you know, thick kind of piece of plastic that would sit up on its own in a DTOF. And it's you know, painted on with UV matte inks. So it's really, you know, high quality. It's not glossy. So like, it's not like the lights don't reflect bad off it. So yeah. It looks really good. Yeah. And so he can take anything and do anything. And if you go to his Facebook page, I mean, there's some incredible stuff that he's got, like for, you know, if you take out some of the shelves in a DTOF, like he can go like straight up the whole back of it. Like, oh, wow. Some pretty legit stuff. So, yeah, he's worth checking out for sure. And I have like, I think 4 more on the way for my next displays that I'm working on. So you've been teasing us about this, like this new display, but I mean, this, like you showed us and I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
Serious stuff.
Yeah. So the 3 Moducases that are here, these are all custom sizes. And I have another custom size that's actually longer than these ones. And so I'm taking the Hall of Armor out of here and putting it in this new one that's longer, because there's only 6 pieces of the Hall of Armor here. So I'm adding the 7th for when TC's, you know, crystal ball comes through and we get the Mark 1. And then I am also going to put the Iron Spider, you know, deal in there as well. And so it's going to be a kind of a huge display. So for this one here, I had a roof scene for a Spider-Man display that I'm going to do. So the Vulture is going to go in there, Spider-Man, Doc Ock, Miles, and then Mark 47, Mysterio, that whole deal. But yeah, so I wrote this guy. I don't even know his name, but the company's IC Custom Diorama, and again, he's on Facebook. So I just wrote him and said, "Hey, you know, his work, if you look on his page, like it's unreal. Like some of the stuff he does, it's like next level. Like it's just unbelievable stuff." So anyways, I wrote him and said, "Hey man, I'm looking at this, and you know, what could you do?" And he's like, "Oh, absolutely." Like he's like, "Well, totally can do that for you." And so I just gave him all my ideas. I told him I wanted a rooftop scene, I wanted a water tower, I wanted a billboard on it, like, you know, totally want like a legit rooftop. And he's like, "Yeah, totally." So it's in the last stages. He wrote me today and said he's just doing the final weathering on it. And so if you look at any of his Facebook pictures, you'll get a glimpse into like the detail of this thing. It's just going to be unreal. So yeah, so it's going to have some flight stands put in it. Yeah. And so I showed you guys what I think pictures of the water tower and the rooftop. And I mean, it's stellar. Stellar.
Yeah, you'll have to drop some photos in our Facebook group.
Yeah, I should.
Here when you get it all set up, but it's just crazy. But yeah, anyways, you know, for the few people that are actually able to view the stream, I don't know what YouTube is having an issue tonight. I mean, we haven't had a breakdown in our conversation here, and for whatever reason, if this isn't streaming, we'll just download the video afterwards and put this on YouTube afterwards. That won't be a problem. But, for the people that are there, I mean, they, Randall's saying that, backdrops and bases is definitely, is great. And I think, we could definitely come back to this topic at another point. I mean, we have, Chris, where he's got a blank canvas of, doesn't even know what he's going to do at this point. TC and I are too scared to probably try anything really outside of the box too much. So we'll see. I definitely want to get the Moji cases set up and see how it's going to look and see what their options are there. But we appreciate you sharing all those, those cool ideas there, Scott. All right. And finally, because one of the other reasons we wanted to have Scott on was to finally do a review of the Wasp from Ant-Man and the Wasp, MMS498. The figure that took 810 days or 2 years, 2 months, and 18 days to get released. And Scott, you did a video on your channel a couple weeks ago, I think, for Evangelini. I can't say her name. I can never say her name right. Anyways, Hope Van Dyne. And in the MCU here, and just a stellar, awesome review. Definitely recommend people heading over to your channel to watch that. You had me very, very close to ordering this, but I had willpower kicked in. I decided to pass for now, but doesn't mean it's not a great figure. So I'll just go over the stats here, and then we'll start to break down, some of the characteristics of the figure here, and I'll start to bring up the blogger photos here as well. So MSRP on this was $251 at Sideshow. Originally announced, Chris, June 30th, 2018, and then released in Hong Kong September 16th, 2020. As I said, those 810 long days waiting. Hot Toys originally thought they were going to drop this in Q3 or Q4 2019, which is kind of laughable at this point. So, So, Chris, you just got it in hand. Scott, you've had it in hand longer because you got it direct from Hong Kong. Did the review here. I mean, Scott, this is just a really good release.
It's incredible. It's one of the best figures, I think, that I've gotten in a long time. Like that first picture you showed, like that head sculpt it's unreal. Like it's like, I mean, just look at that. Like that's incredible stuff. All the things, there's, again, with every figure, there's always a few little things, but I mean, overall, this is an incredible release. Love everything. The only thing I don't like about it is, like I said in the video, is how good the head sculpt is, because there's no way, like, I can pose it like that with Ant-Man, like, because you'd want to have them both with their, like, that's the only downfall. It just reminds you how bad of a head sculpt that is, and I can't for the life of me understand how bad that was. But anyways, like every picture you look at this in, just a great release. I love the detail in it. The material is a little bit restrictive for posing, which is, that's always the give and take with the figures. But in terms of like screen accuracy, it's flawless in my opinion, for sure.
And in hand, obviously, I mean, to my untrained eye, I mean, to me, it looks like the final production looked better than the prototype.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
And that doesn't happen often. So Chris, you've got it. Yeah, for sure. So Chris, I know you've got it in hand. I mean, first impressions.
Yeah. First impressions. I mean, this figure definitely lives up to, more of the hype than originally, thought. I mean, it's just one of those figures where it's so different from what else is on your DC shelf. God, what the heck is wrong with me?
Got Harley on the brain or something?
Maybe always. Yeah, on your Marvel shelf. I mean, I just, I think it's a great representation of the character from the MCU. I mean, it's awesome. And to have her wings on, I mean, the wingspan is so big that it just adds so much presence to this figure, especially if you have her up on, a flight stand or whatever. The material, the design of the suit, everything, the helmet is awesome. I love like the faux carbon fiber and everything. It's just such an awesome figure. And I'm really, I was really glad to be able to add it to the collection. and then of course the head sculpt is just, I mean, look at that. It's on the screen now. I mean, it's insane how good this head sculpt is of Evangeline Lilly. God, I can't even say her name either. The tequila doesn't help. So yeah. I just yeah, great figure. And if you're on the fence or whatever, I mean, I would definitely pick her up while she's still in stock, because it's going to be a long time before we get another figure of Wasp. You know, Ant-Man 3 or Ant-Man and the Wasp 2, whatever they call it. I mean, it's not going to come out for probably another 2 or 3 years. So yeah, love it. TC, what do you? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this figure, this is so much better than the Ant-Man release. It's not even just the head sculpt, in my opinion. This is like a 10. The Ant-Man's like a 6.
Yeah.
And with the Ant-Man figure, the way the material is, like if you bend the legs, the hips at all, it like deforms the material right around the hip area. It pinches it, and it just looks terrible. And this one, actually, you can actually pose it, and it will, you know, kind of regain its form. I just think this is phenomenal. It's just unfortunate that the other one, the partner figure,
Yeah.
it was almost like Hot Toys just kind of just dropped the ball. They could have done better. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's certainly not their best work. But this figure is awesome, and I've also been close to ordering this. I just don't know where it would go, but it's one of those figures that's like, it's just so good, and you know, like you said, Chris, you got 5 years.
Yeah.
Before another Wasp comes out. Who knows? I mean, everything's being pushed back for Marvel, the movies. So I mean, if the movie doesn't come out till 2023 or whatever it's supposed to come out, a year and a half plus, and you don't know what's going on in 2025. So I mean, to get this figure now, it's going to rise in value. The head sculpt's amazing, and it's definitely worthy. I mean, this is, to me, one of their best of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to use the Roy rating scale, which I didn't jot down, I'll have to get that afterwards. But I mean, to use TC's comment, if this is such a good figure, but it's not from a line that you collect, I mean, it seems like it's leaning towards a Chris. Like,
yeah,
it's certainly not it could be a Bryan. It's one you buy and maybe hang on to for like 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see for it to be a TC to get multiples of. I mean, if you really want to have a helmeted and non-helmeted version, then maybe you get 2. But I mean, if Roy was here, I think he'd rate it as a Chris.
It's one that I mean, if you're a Marvel fan and you like filling out those collections, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, she's an original Avenger, like from the comics. So even if you want a representation of the original Avengers team, I mean, she's great. And then all you need to have is just a little ant, one of the tiny Ant-Mans to go with her, and you don't even need the 6 scale version.
It's true, and I mean, Wasp is intimidating. I mean, when I go in my backyard, I look out for the wasps. I mean,
TC with the line of the episode so
too
far.
Too funny. And I mean, I've seen people use like the SH figure arts versions of Ant-Man and stuff like that, and it's funny because like you would never do that with like any other characters for to pair with 1/6, but these 2 figures you can get away with that just because of their the type of character they are and their abilities. So but I mean, you got to have this one in 6 scale. So
I mean, the best scene in that Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, we just recently watched it as a family, is when they go to he goes to his daughter's school and he's the mini version, and he's trying to jump up.
Yeah, he's got the sweatshirt on and everything.
Yep.
I know, my kids love that scene.
So you could recreate that if you really did not want to buy the Ant-Man figure here, but yeah, it's a shame. I mean, you keep the helmet on, maybe it's not so bad, but you're right, Scott. I mean, that head sculpt of Paul Rudd is just atrocious. It's almost comically bad. You almost have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, I would rather buy 2 of the Wasp figures and have one unhelmeted and one helmeted than buy the Ant-Man.
Yeah, have one with the, on the fight stand with the wings and one without.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stan the man here. I mean, these photos are just incredible. I mean, for certain. I think we could probably rate it. I have a feeling where this will go. Scott and Chris, I'll ask you guys to rate it. So I say we go. Obviously, we just kind of gave our Roy rating scale, which we'll try to do going forward as well. But on a scale of 1 to 5, we're on a cap. That's her line from Endgame. Where she gave him grief, gave Scott Lang grief in Ant-Man and the Wasp for that, phrase. So start with go with Chris and end with Scott. So Chris, how many 1 to 5 were on a caps would you give the Wasp here?
I mean, she's got to be a 5. 5. I mean, there's not much else I would really change on this figure at all.
So Scott, we're going to ask you to convert. Maybe it's the Canadian exchange rate that we'll need to do here for your YouTube rating scale of on a scale of 1 to 10. We're going with a 1 to 5. We're on a cap. It doesn't have to be super. This is for fun. This is for fun.
Yeah. I give it a 4.75 because I didn't give it a perfect 10 on my review, so I can't give it a perfect 5 out of 5 now. So I'll give it a 4.75. There's a few minor things, but they're so minor. But very few figures
what's
are
better,
perfect.
Nebula or the Wasp? You had to throw one in the trash outside your office. I keep the other
Shred it, throw in the shred.
Oh, that's brief.
Wow, that's a tough call. I think the Wasp is a better figure, probably just because you can pose it more. Nebula is really tough. For me personally, like I don't use the displays, the stands. So that's the difference. And so, yeah, I go with Wasp.
Strong.
But that's tough, man. Tough.
Strong recommendation there. So, all right. Move over to closing thoughts here. Really bummed that a lot of scavengers couldn't tune in live. We'll find out afterwards what the issue was with YouTube, but we've at least got the broadcast here. And as Mike said earlier in the chat, we'll get this uploaded regardless on YouTube. So again, before we go through our normal plugs, Scott, again, it's such a blast to hang out and talk collecting with you. I mean, we do it daily now, whether you're before you join the team or not, whether you knew what you're getting into, it's now 3 or 4 months in. You've been sticking around, so you must dig it a little bit. But man, we're super pumped to have you part of the team, and obviously thank you again for the intro and outro videos, and obviously. We didn't really give you a chance too much to talk about, your channel. So I wanted to do that now, for anybody that may have missed your first appearance or, is kind of living under a rock and is not aware of the great work that you're doing over at Parker Files.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's fun. I obviously love hanging out with you guys, and Lisa, my wife, continues to say you guys are my imaginary friends. So that's awesome. And my guess is I think there's something wrong with this Canadian my internet. I think I'm causing the problems because I think last time I was on, we had problems too. So there must be something with the conversion, that whole thing. But yeah, so no, check out Parker Files on YouTube. It's been fun. It seems like it's been hasn't been as long as it has, but we've been going, I think, almost a year now, and it's been a lot of fun. And have some more reviews coming fairly soon. So, but appreciate all the support. Everybody's, been watching and subscribing, and that's always a help and an encouragement. So yeah, we've got, just did drop Gamora, I think last week, be doing the Mark 47 right away. And then, Stan Lee. And then we'll do some other stuff as they come out. So yeah, hoping to keep it going.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. All right, so we have our website, scalescavengers.com, with the database and checklist that we mentioned. We also feature, we embed on some of those pages Scott's reviews for Marvel figures. We've got our TeePublic store. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have our audio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and scalescavengers.libsyn.com. And again, as we mentioned it, subscribe to Parker Files on YouTube, the official Marvel Hot Toys video reviewer of Scale Scavengers. So do it. Just do it now.
Yeah.
If you're Emperor Palpatine. That's
Yeah,
probably one of
totally.
our most used memes or GIFs on a daily basis. It's just do it. So, and again, we mentioned at the top, TC, thank you for powering through. You had initially thought you might have to pass on tonight. Your streak is intact. I figured out earlier, so I think you joined us first on episode 24. We're now in episode 60. That's a heck of a streak to keep going. It wouldn't be the same without you, so we glad you could join us still.
Yeah, it was fun. I just was worried if how it would come across on the mic, but it seems like it went pretty well. I'm also a master at managing the mute button, so if I ever had to cough, nobody heard it. So
I didn't hear one of them. So
yeah, just real quick, just give a quick listen to Collecting Weekly. Great podcast, and they've got weekly content of pretty much everything collecting. So last tidbit of the night.
Yep. So thanks, TC. Chris, any closing thoughts?
No, just wondering if any of those teases are gonna, come to fruition, or if we're gonna get anything else. Any previously, teased figures coming out. Just come on, Hot Toys, keep pumping them out.
We're due a release. So
Yeah.
Yeah, what is I was going to ask you guys, what is your guess? What's the next release?
Gamora. Honestly. So
Beskar
I've heard
Yeah.
some things. I'm not going to disclose any sources, but I mentioned it last time out. I thought it was imminent. I think it's going to happen pretty soon here. They can't drag it out any longer. I mean, they can't let it get to 3 years. I mean, that would just be nuts. It's not the Hulkbuster 1.0.
Yeah. I mean, some of these figures that have been hanging out there, like Endgame Cap. I mean, what's going on with that one?
Mark 85.
Yeah, Mark 85, regular release. I mean, there's just
The quantum suits, like there's all these random things, right? There's all these random things that are out there.
Pepper
They're all on the
Potts.
vessel. They're all on the vessel.
For sure. All right, guys. Before this thing gets off the rails, I think we can definitely call it a show here. And again, thanks, Scott, for joining us. We'll have you on again at some point here, and definitely make sure that you're checking out Parker Files for sure. So, all right, guys, great show. We'll be back in 2 weeks for episode 61. So, Chris, my friend, bring us home.
Excelsior.